Hello, and welcome back to the Art Preesh podcast.
We have these sound effects. I don't even know if
That's not going to work, but
it's definitely going to show up.
the rim shot is going to show up?
Yeah.
Oh, there's the applause.
Hey.
That'll work. Yeah, none of you guys... See, we just keep getting better.
Welcome
First we
to the
rebrand, and then it turns out we have sound effects.
Whoa.
I mean,
what's next?
going to be next? Actually, I do know what's going to be next, but we're not going to reveal that yet.
We're not going to reveal that yet. It's a sponsor. No,
It's just, dude, I wish.
that would be awesome.
That'd be so nice.
One day we'll get
Who knows? But, yeah, I'm Tucker, and over there is my good buddy...
I'm Zane.
It's Zane. And this is the podcast where we preach art. We appreciate art. We practice the spiritual discipline of art appreciation, where we intake the gift of God that art is and filter it through the lens of our faith and ask deeper questions than just like, oh, what's the symbolism? Or like, how cool is the camera work? But like, what can art tell us about movies? Or sorry, what can art tell us about movies?
Yeah, what can art such as movies?
Yeah, what can it tell us about the human condition or even about God, spiritual realities that we believe permeate our every facet of life? And it's been a blast so far. The last two episodes are so much fun. I'm looking forward to this one. The support's been really cool to see from family and friends. Yeah, if you want, give us a follow on Spotify or Apple. We're available in both of those places. The link tree to all our different links, our letterbox, our different platforms. Just today, I finished kind of an annotated bibliography of different books that I think would be useful for familiarizing yourself with the spiritual discipline of art appreciation. And you can find all those resources in our link tree. Yeah, give us a 5-star rating on those platforms. If you can, give us a follow on Instagram. It really does mean a lot. And even though if nobody else was here, we'd probably still do this. It's an excuse for us to talk about movies. We still appreciate it.
We would sit around and talk about movies and music and television and books, and we would do that anyways. And so why not? Yeah, like I used to say, why not record ourselves doing it and force our family to listen to us? Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's like send it to my parents every 2 weeks and say, here it is. And my mom's like, I'll feel like a better mom if I. Sorry, my mom does listen to this, and now I feel like I'm not dunking on. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry.
Tucker's mom, he watches rated R movies.
I do. I just did today.
Oh,
but before, actually,
Tucker,
I would like to get to that because we don't just preach art. We don't just appreciate art.
Yeah.
During the recording of these episodes, we do it as often as possible.
Yeah.
I hope. And you have been doing something interesting that even I have not ventured to do. What have you been doing for the past few weeks?
I've been listening to at least one newly released piece of music art on a weekly basis. Most of the time, for the past few weeks, I've been listening to probably 3 or 4 new albums, 2025 albums, just randomly finding albums that I think I would enjoy, kind of introducing myself to new artists, new genres. I probably spent 3 hours this week just listening to like ambient techno music. Oh yeah.
Wow.
There's an album I just listened to by a guy named Tim Hecker that is just ambient noise, and it was very good. I enjoyed it. And
I've heard of Tim Hecker.
A lot of mopping and sweeping this week, and I was doing that to the sound of like pianos and subway train remixes. I don't know. It's weird, dude.
That's cool.
But it was very good. So I've been listening, but more than anything, I've been listening to a lot of metal. A lot of metal.
Yeah.
Sludge metal, black metal, shoegazy, kind of heavy, Deaf Heaven metal.
Oh, dude. That's the second thing about us that you should know. We're both Christians. We're also both metalheads. And boy, howdy is Deaf Heaven dropping some fire right now.
Their stuff. If you want to do anything, first of all, listen to Deaf Heaven.
Mom, go listen to Deaf Heaven.
Mom, go listen to Deaf Heaven, especially the song Heathens.
Heathens is good.
It's very good.
We're going to see them in May.
Yes, we are. Maybe we can do a podcast about it. I don't know.
During the concert.
Yeah.
It's just like drowned out.
What do you think? What does that bass drum tell you about the rhythm of the spirit? I don't know. We'll figure something out. But I've been listening to a lot of metal. I listened to some new Deaf Heaven single releases. I listened to an album by a band called Ren.
That was a cool album.
That was a very cool sludge metal, kind of grindcore album that was really, really good.
Oh yeah.
I listened to a lot of kind of like post metal stuff too, which is interesting. I've only really listened to like metalcore styled music. Like,
yeah, it's
really,
kind of our bag.
Yeah, which I very much enjoy. My favorite album of all of last year was an album by a band called Boundaries that is just classic metalcore, and it was absolutely...
Death is Little More, bro.
Death is Little More.
That one's good.
Absolute 5-star perfect album. Go listen to that. But yeah, I've been listening to a lot of, and then I also listen to some country and stuff like that I'm just trying to expose myself to a variety of genres. I have a playlist that I'm listening to that I just add. I'll go find like new releases that people are listening to, and I'll just like add that to my album queue playlist. I got that from my buddy Daniel. Yeah. So just listen to them, and then I listen to them in order until they're all the way done. So it's been very good. It's been very cool.
So would you say it is? I don't know if you ever like really like dived in and told. Mm-hmm. I mean, you and I and Dan have a chat where we just usually send each other music, and I don't know if you ever like really just like told us necessarily why you were doing this. Is it just to kind of try and expand your taste, or like what's your goal here?
Well, I feel personally like music and movies are maybe the most impactful forms of art to me. I think I'm trying to make books a part of that, and television shows have always been kind of impactful for me in a lot of ways growing up, but music and movies especially. So sometimes I'll literally just scroll through whatever. If I want to watch an action movie, I'll just scroll through YouTube TV until I find one that I haven't seen before, and I'll just watch it. I'll just like expose myself to it because I enjoy intaking new things like that. And so when it comes to music, I found myself over last year, there's nothing wrong with this, repeatedly listening to the same albums by the same artists because I really enjoy them, and there's nothing wrong with that. I never get sick of it. But I'm trying to just widen my scope within the genres that I enjoy and try and expose myself to new artists and kind of maybe new genres of music that I would have never, like I've literally never in my life just sat down and listened to an ambient album before. Like a 2 hour and 30-minute noise album. And it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. It's not my favorite. I wouldn't like put that on to go work out or anything, but driving to work, working on emails and communication things, and working in a building and like doing stuff like that. Like it was a good thing. So I don't really have like a set goal other than maybe more so just trying to expose myself to a wider variety of music. So,
that's cool. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, that's helped me in that effort too, because I kind of come up against the same dilemma. I once heard somebody say like, hey, when you're in your 40s, you'll still be listening to what you enjoyed when you're in your 20s. And I'm like, oh man, that sounds depressing. Yeah. I want to try and avoid that as much as I can. I mean, obviously those things will still be my favorite, but I do want to expand my palette.
Yeah, definitely. It's not like that's the only music that I'm listening to. I'm listening to quite a few more. But yeah, this album Shards by Tim Hecker was very good. Black Rain Falls by Ren. This album, which this is the funny part of this podcast, is this album isn't even remotely close to a faithful Jesus album. Oh, but He Watches in Silence by God Complex.
Stuff's crazy.
Oh my goodness gracious, that album goes incredibly hard. And then I've over the past few months I listened to one album though. Let me tell you, this may be the first negative review of art on this podcast. There's an album by an artist named Ethel Cain.
Perverts, yeah.
That album Perverts, I gave a 0.5 star.
I know, I saw that.
It is kind of the most dumb album I have ever listened to, dude. I'm not kidding. And this is maybe going to expose some people to... I didn't tell Tucker I was going to talk about this. She talks about masturbating on that album so much.
Really?
Way too much for me. Way too much. And I had suffered through it because this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to expose myself. I didn't anticipate that one. But guess what? I was in the middle of it, let it go, and promptly, and I mean promptly, went to Music Board and gave that a 0.5 star review.
That's... So hey, remember how we said maybe don't show this show to the kids? There's that for you.
Album. I mean, the album music is horrendous. It's terrible.
You think so?
Oh, I think it was bad. Did you listen to it?
No, but like...
It wasn't good. It was not good. The first like 9... I showed Aiden and my brother, and we were just laughing. It's like 9 minutes of just synth pounding synths with just like this garbled nonsense backroom microphone talk. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
Yeah, sometimes art does not land right.
Yeah, it's not all good. They're not all good, but most of the time it's good.
Mom, go listen to Ethel Cain.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's not going to like affect you. It's bad.
Okay.
It was really bad. But Tucker, that's enough about me and the art that I've been taking in, which I will continue to do so.
Yeah.
Gladly.
I mean, and again, like, well, not again, but
yeah,
what I wanted to say was that you have kind of been helpful to me in this aspect that like you send all this stuff to me and Dan, and I've, it's because sometimes I fear of getting stuck in that rut where I'm just listening to the same things over and over. And I've listened to a few new albums because you've been doing this. So I've been very grateful for it.
Good. I'm glad. I appreciate the things that you send and the books that you're reading that I can see on Goodreads. A lot of this Francis Schaeffer. I've never read a Francis Schaeffer book, but I'm incredibly excited to read some of the things that you put out, some of the books that you added to that recommendation list.
Yeah.
A lot of the music that you listen to, the Death Therapy albums that you've been sharing have been really encouraging.
Yeah.
Really, really good. You introduced me to the band Pipe Bomb that I've never listened to before.
Dude.
Oh, my goodness gracious, those guys. One guy.
It's one guy.
Rips.
Mitch. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So, yeah, I can thank you for the same. You also introduced me to Showbread, which is, I mean, probably my second favorite band of all time. It's definitely, they have my favorite album of all time.
We may have to do an episode on them someday.
We'll have multiple episodes on Showbread. We can do an episode just on Our Fathers Were Models for God, their most recent album, because that's my favorite album of all time.
Dang.
My favorite album
that's big.
ever of all time.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
That will come in the future when we talk more about music.
It goes both ways, Tucker. You introduced me to just as much.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I have also been appreciating art apart from this podcast.
Yeah.
Just today, I went and saw The Monkey.
Oh.
If you'll recall, that was one of my top 5 movies.
The one about that British singer, Robbie Williams?
Yeah, it was really weird because I walked in and I didn't think Robbie Williams would be killing that many people, but
he kills a lot of people.
He kills a lot of people.
How did he get so famous? Why isn't he in jail?
Yeah, why'd they let him continue? Is this some kind of surrealist adaptation of his life? I knew the monkey thing was going to be in there. I didn't think it was going to get this wild. No.
If you didn't know, there's a movie that came out, a biopic about an artist named Robbie Williams.
Better Man.
Yeah, it's called Better Man, and he, in the movie, is a monkey. He's a life...
Yeah, he's a lifelike simian.
I almost said animatronic. He's just a lifelike monkey figure.
He's a lifelike simian.
So there's been a lot of monkey movies this year, but tell us about The Monkey, directed by Osgood Perkins.
Yeah. I'll just tell you a little bit about it because I'm very excited to talk about today's movie, the main subject. But it was last year. Osgood Perkins put out Long Legs, which is
scariest movie I've ever seen.
It's so scary. And this movie, I had a smile on my face for most of it. I was laughing so much. It's one of the funniest movies I've seen in recent memory. Just goofy and over the top. And I mean, for me, it's one of those things. People called it nihilistic because kind of the big premise of the movie is it's this monkey that can just kill people whenever it wants in like these explosively horrible ways. Mm-hmm.
Is it like a real monkey or is it like
it's a toy monkey?
Toy monkey. Okay.
You wind it up and it does its thing. So,
cool.
And it's just random. So the whole thing is like, well, it's kind of like life. It happens and can't control it.
Interesting.
And sometimes it's awful. And some people call it nihilistic. Now me, I didn't really think of it as a nihilistic movie. I mean, that's just realistic.
Yeah.
So death happens and sometimes it's awful and you can't control it.
That's really good.
But for me, like, I walk away thinking like, man, I don't, people come up with all sorts of ways to cope with it. And I'm like, I'm glad that I got what I got. Mm-hmm. I got the hope of resurrection.
Yeah.
I can laugh during a movie like The Monkey. 'Cause one, it's probably not going to be as bad for me on my final day as it is for all the people in that movie.
Yeah.
And two, I death ain't got nothing on me.
Yep.
Because of what I got. So
that's good. That's really good.
If you're somebody who can laugh at death, and just like it's cartoonish how
goofy.
over the top it is.
Over the top.
It's goofy. So it's marketed as it is a very gory movie, but in the sense that it's just like, There is.
That's the purpose of it.
Yeah, that's the point. Is that it's hilariously over the top.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it quite a bit. I gave it 4 stars out of 5.
Yeah,
So,
I saw that. It's really good.
I think for a certain audience, it's worth your time.
Yeah.
But Mom, don't watch The Monkey, please. Don't watch The Monkey, Mom.
Unless you really want to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
The more we go about this podcast too, this is kind of a side trip. But as you're saying that, I'm trying to think like, know your limits, definitely. Know the things that are going to keep you, that are going to be maybe blinders or stumbling blocks from you being able to experience what I think Christ would intend for you to experience in art. But then also, what are the things that you should or could, and I shouldn't say should, what are the things that you can expose yourself to challenge the things that you've kind of grown accustomed to? And it's, again, maybe it's like me, just exposing myself to more variety in art. Maybe I don't know what the first thing for me was that I kind of experienced outside of the realm of my like normative life.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could experience Jesus or like process through this and come to a gospel message at the end of it. Or, there's nothing about this thing that I did or watched that explicitly said Jesus or Jesus died for your sins. But at the end of it, I thought more about that. I can't remember. Maybe I should sit and think more about that. But
yeah, it's do it in community if you can.
Yes,
with some
definitely.
people who can.
Yeah,
because that's part of this. Is like it's a lot better to process these things together.
Yeah, for certain.
That's what we're doing when we're not doing this, and it's just been a great journey. I'm really excited to keep going, and in the spirit of that,
yes,
let's jump in
to
this episode's movie. What did we watch, Zane?
We set it up last week. We said it was a 2 weeks ago. We said it was a Denzel Washington movie.
Oh, man.
And everybody thought it was going to be Training Day. And
is that real?
No, I don't think so. Everybody thought it was going to be Hoosiers. Just kidding. The other football sports movie that he's in. He's not even in Hoosiers. I remember the Titans. Everybody thought it was going to be Coach Carter.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be Flight.
I said when I announced it, I was like, join the boys as they resist the temptation to turn it into the Denzel Preesh podcast, because we're going to have, we might be talking a lot about Denzel.
We're going to have some Denzel movies. We are talking about The Book of Eli.
Oh, man.
Which was recommended to us, actually, from my other brother, Elijah. So thank you, Eli, if you're listening to this. What a great movie. So, yes, the book of Eli. I probably should have made notes. I can't remember. I know the directors are brothers.
Yep, Hughes brothers.
The Hughes brothers.
It's kind of bizarre, actually. So the movie came out in 2010, and the directors are the Hughes brothers. I think it's Alan Robert. I'm probably wrong.
That sounds right.
But
they only have maybe one more movie that's been like a massive smash hit, right?
They made Menace to Society at the beginning of their careers. That's a great movie.
Yep.
They made Dead Presidents, which I haven't seen, and a few more. They didn't really get a lot of great attention after Menace to Society. Mm-hmm. But this was their final collaboration together, at least as of right now. Literally, one of them, I think one of them lives in the Ukraine now. And
that's not the place to be.
I might be wrong about that. He's definitely in Europe. He's somewhere in Europe, and he's not.
Let's pray it's not Ukraine.
Yeah. And they just apparently they don't see each other a lot anymore. You wonder what happened there. But one of them just does like basically strictly documentary work, and one of them still does work in like TV and movies, and just haven't done a lot since this movie. But this is their last thing together, 2010.
Yeah. With
Denzel Washington. The cast was like getting slapped with a tuna a couple times. Because it was like, Denzel Washington, obviously, Gary Oldman, he's there. They're top billed.
Denzel, Gary Oldman.
Mila Kunis shows up.
Mila Kunis is in this movie.
She shows up, and then not only her, but Michael Gambon. There's an old guy that shows up later in the movie. It's freaking Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Michael Gambon, however you say his name. Plays an old guy with a southern accent. So
we'll talk more about that.
That was wild.
We'll talk about that. Yep. And then Tom Waits is in this movie.
Oh yeah, he's in this movie too. Yeah,
and he has like an incredibly small role.
Yeah, he's mostly he's Yeah, they definitely got him for his voice. Like, you sound like you've been choking down dust for 30 years. Come on, Tom. Get on over here. Yeah. So that is the Book of Eli. Before we get into anything else, did you like it, Zane?
So I should say I saw this movie. I believe I saw this movie in probably 2011 or 2012.
Wow.
I didn't see it in theaters, but I remember seeing all of the promotions for it and everything and thinking, that movie looks so freaking cool.
Yup.
And then I believe my dad found out that it had the Bible in it, and we were able to watch some rated R movies at that time. I was at the age where I was allowed to watch some rated R movies with the supervision of my parents, and I remember watching that with my dad and absolutely loving it. And so the second time, I hadn't seen it since then. This is only the second time that I watched it. And so there's some very important things to remember about this movie when you watch it the second time. And I was curious to see how I would enjoy it, and I did enjoy it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, which is above average.
Yeah.
And this is something we can take some time to talk about later. 3 out of 5 is a good score. That's above average.
That's a good movie.
That's a good movie.
Yeah.
It has its flaws, and we'll talk a little bit about that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely not Harakiri.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely not Harakiri. It's not even remotely close to Harakiri, but I found myself enjoying it, and I wrote in my review, a classic rewatchable. I could watch this movie at any point and enjoy it just as much. It's really, really good. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I think even more than I expected. I gave it 3.5 stars.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. And yeah, I think there's a lot to like. I liked the post-apocalyptic setting.
Yep.
I like the very classic Western setup of it. It's very much in the Western genre. I mean, like we said, Denzel freaking Washington. The guy brings the heat every time without even having to try.
This has got to be one of the main inspirations for him getting the gig with The Equalizer, right? You think?
Maybe. No one surprised me. He did all of his own stunts in this movie.
Yeah, and he trained with Bruce Lee's, like, karate gym.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy.
It's wild.
And by the way,
he's amazing.
We're gonna have to really restrain ourselves. But Denzel, like, we talk about, like, modern actors, the GOAT conversation.
Yeah,
Denzel's in there.
He's in there
for sure.
For sure,
he is in there. So
of actors that are currently living, he's top 5. I'd say
he's so good,
easily.
So he's really good. Gary Oldman's good. I mean, I love it when Gary Oldman can shout at somebody and say, get everyone and go after this guy.
Yeah.
It's a good day.
Yeah.
It's a good day when he can do that in Leon the Professional and The Dark Knight and in this
movie.
movie.
Leon the Professional, so good. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that movie.
Gary Oldman is good in that one too.
He is
but
very good.
He's good in this movie.
He is. I put my note with Gary Oldman was Gary Oldman is as believable as can be for such a character.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed some of the action scenes. I mean, and freaking Eli's sword in this movie, dude.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It's iconic. It looks great.
It's so cool.
The
whole aesthetic of the movie is,
cool.
in my opinion, very good. I enjoy it a lot. You put it's like a 2-hour new metal music video.
Oh yeah, we can get into cons now. That's
well, we could get into that at another point. But I like it, dude. I thought it was really cool.
I was just like thinking like Mike Shinoda would pop up at some point. One guy walking out in the wasteland, chopping up fools with a dominant sword. Just like freaking.
Yeah. It is
Chester
very
Bennington
much,
coming out.
Very much Linkin Park-esque.
Scott Stapp just emerging over the crest of the hill.
Yo, brother, we're talking about post grunge.
No, it was literally just like that was one thing that really kind of stuck out to me was just like that aesthetic. I was like, ooh, this shows its age,
and it doesn't really change. It's kind of gets stuck in that. And the Mad Max movies, which are more recent, there's a lot more vibrancy to the deadness, if I could put it like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot more pop.
Yeah. So there's a lot of it's one of those things where you'd think I deduct more from my rating because it's it's a visual medium and there's so much visually that I kind of have issues with. But I mean, it wasn't so distracting that I was just taken out. But yeah, I think the colors could have been better. The editing was weird. There's too much slow motion.
Oh man, I don't know. I liked it. I liked it. So one cool note is there's not even a word of dialogue until 9 minutes into this movie.
Oh yeah,
which is cool.
That part's pretty cool.
It's very interesting. I watched this with my brother Keenan, and Keenan's been listening. Shout out Keenan. Thanks for watching this with me.
Appreciate that.
If anybody remembers more about movies than my brother Keenan, I will be surprised. That kid can watch a movie one time and tell you every single detail about the entire movie. He was saying things while watching this movie that I was like, what in the world?
What you saying?
This is crazy that you remember this. But he pointed out that there were some scenes where there's a little bit of blue peeking through the sky, or it's kind of like the sky is a little bit green.
I did not
just kind of little hints of things like that.
Yeah.
That I was like, I don't know, maybe my TV's broken. And he's like, I think it's on purpose, and it made me think a little bit. So, yeah, it is very bland though. It's very gray, very, very kind of dead.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it through all that stuff.
I think for me, it might be just that.
I'll share my main negative a little bit later.
I think I might know what it is.
Yeah, you're probably gonna guess what it is.
But yeah, I think a lot of it might be that it just like when it comes to a story like this, westerns and post-apocalyptic, I prefer it not to be. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I like really stylized movies.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, like The Monkey. But this was one where these are two genres where I'm like, I would like it to be more stark and more like just have everybody dressed like Eli does. Mm-hmm. There's kind of like these Mad Max bikers in the movie, and I was kind of like, that kind of throws me off a little bit. But I mean, again, like none of this is deal breakers. It was just like kind of momentarily distracting.
Yeah.
And it definitely felt like the Hughes brothers were drawing from Mad Max, which is fine because they're great movies.
And when I was going to guess, or I was going to try and find out, but I guess I'm going to have to guess. The Mad Max movie came out in the 80s, right?
I think the first one was like,
that's Kurt, I think the
first
Russell.
No.
Who am I
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson.
I think the first one was like 79, 78.
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong about that.
Yeah.
But
we're not talking about the new ones.
Yeah.
With Tom Hardy.
The old with Melly Gibb. Yep. So that was just like, because you start out with Eli being very like realistic. He's dressed very realistic.
Yep.
And like one thing I loved too was just like the little details about like, things like chapstick and water are extremely valuable. He uses KFC wet wipes to wash himself.
Yeah.
Like little practical details that I really enjoyed. And and then some Mad Max bikers or thieves roll up, and it's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
but still fun.
Yeah.
Because he kills him. But in a very stylish way that's interesting. But
oh man, I still have. Every time we're talking, every time I think about this movie, one scene comes to mind, and it is visually. I love it. But
okay,
yeah. Well, some of the action in this movie is very good. It's kind of
there's some cool
in
stuff
my mind as I was watching it too. I was like, this has to be. I mean, I can't think of a movie earlier in this modern kind of one-man army shoot 'em up. Kind of John Wick style Equalizer, like
it could be kind of a predecessor.
This is kind of like a predecessor, in like he's by himself, he's completely alone, and he's taking on 5, 10, 15, 20 people at a time.
Yeah, well,
in the action scene,
strictly speaking, he's not alone.
He is not alone,
but we'll get to that soon enough.
Yeah, we will indeed.
But I mean, so we can get to that.
The action is very cool.
Do we want to just like give a brief sketch?
Yeah.
Last week we told everything that happened to Harakiri. And I kind of want to see if we can avoid that and just say, hey, here's the basic outline.
Yes.
So let's give a basic outline of what you need to know going into the Book of Eli to kind of know what you're getting into.
Yeah, that's good. So Eli is our protagonist. He is living in a post-apocalyptic world. He is in possession of the most important book in history that you come to find out is being pursued by a gang led by the protagonist, who is Gary Oldman. His character is the protagonist. Carnegie is his name.
Yep.
And so Eli is traveling with this book across the country in pursuit of getting it to the West. He's
the West.
He's trying to west. He's going west. And every step that he takes westward, he encounters trouble.
Yeah.
And you find out that Carnegie is in pursuit of one book. And the biker gang that he sends out is collecting books, but they're not They never bring him the book that he needs.
Yeah, because it's way post-apocalyptic. It's been 30 years.
Very, very post-apocalyptic.
So the young people in this world don't even know how to read.
Yeah, they've been born into a wasteland, essentially. And
yep.
It's presumed that it's been caused by the war. There's a hole in the ozone. It's
people are very dry. A lot of people have gone blind.
Very desert-esque. Yeah, a lot of dryness, a lot of blindness, a lot of dirtiness. You kind of see the ranking of social class show up with Carnegie at the very top. And
that's not saying much.
It's not saying much because the only thing that he has that most other people don't is he can read and he can take a bath.
Yeah,
that's about it. He has soap. So
yeah,
there's a lot of other things that go into that, but it's a post-apocalyptic movie with a very cool plot. I feel it's not just
a very classic Western setup.
Very classic.
Lone drifter capable of some violence kind of comes into a town and stirs things up, and comes in contact with the corrupt sheriff or mayor of the town. Very classic Western setup, and it's very enjoyable. And we'll get into more spoiler territory toward the end of the episode, but if that is enough to entice you, go ahead and pause the episode and watch the movie.
Please do. It's a very good movie.
So with that,
yes,
I would love to talk about our 3 favorite scenes.
Yes,
each of us just pick 3 and go through with that. So I will defer to you first. What is your first favorite scene? It doesn't necessarily have to be like an order of like.
I have 3 favorites. I don't know if I have. Well, I have one that's definitely my favorite. So this is not my favorite. I'll share my very favorite in the third section. This one and the next one are pretty close. The opening scene of the movie is so
okay. Let's talk about this together because that's also one of my 3 favorite scenes.
It's so cool. Dude.
It doesn't look anything like the rest of the movie.
No, it
for
doesn't.
one thing, it's more green and there's ash falling from the sky.
And dark. Yeah. It's the scene in the very beginning of the movie. There's a scene where there's just this naked cat, just this hairless cat roaming through the woods,
and it starts nibbling on a corpse.
And there's dead bodies just littered throughout this forest that you see, and then it starts kind of eating this dead corpse, and ash is falling, and then it slowly pans, and you can kind of make out, there's a man laying on his back with a gas mask on,
and he's breathing, and he's
breathing.
Calm,
it's very quiet. There's no music. It's very calm.
It's such a cool introduction to the world, where it's just like, whoa, what happened here?
Yeah.
And like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And what's his plan here? And he's got a bow kind of racked onto both of his feet, and he's pulling back the string,
and he's just holding it, and then he launches it, and the sound that it makes, and the slow motion aspect, it's brutal. You see a cat get skewered, but it was very cool. The setup it's
really cool.
It's awesome.
It throws you into the world. It makes you ask those things like, what happened? You can infer that it's maybe some kind of nuclear fallout or some sort of thing.
Yeah.
And just like immediately, okay, this guy has survival skills. He's very calm.
Yeah.
He's willing to go the extra mile to survive, eat a cat.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing he can find. He's not finding anything more than cats or small animals like that.
Yeah. Rodents.
So it's a great setup.
It is. It is also very different in style, I think, because it's very dark.
It's more like a green,
dim lit green. Yeah, kind of aesthetic, kind of Neo Matrix kind of inspiration. But the rest of the movie is very kind of bright. It's bright gray.
It's a little jarring because it's like, wait, did this just happen? And now he's out in the desert landscape, and the gas mask is gone. What the heck?
Where did the forest go?
Yeah, where did the forest go? But the cool factor is through the freaking roof.
Oh, it's so cool.
It's so cool. I was thinking through, like, as I was watching, like, okay, kind of be on the lookout for things that really stand out to me, and that scene was just like right off the bat that hooked me.
Yeah,
that was so good.
Yeah, I agree. So then technically now it's your turn again, right? Because we both went at the same time.
No, back to you.
Back to me.
Back to you.
Okay. My second top 3 favorite is there's a scene where Eli is traveling down the road and he encounters a woman who is begging and pleading. She needs help. And you kind of sense that there might be something awry. And Eli wanders up to her, and then he can kind of sense that there's trouble about. And then he calls out the fact that people have been using women like that to take advantage of travelers to try and steal from him. And then he encounters, well, I would say probably 10 guys that are trying that are going to mug him. A bunch of guys. They're going to mug him, and he's under a bridge. Dude, the lighting. Oh my gosh. Eli, our protagonist, encounters this group. He doesn't get robbed. He kind of sniffs out their ploy, and then one guy, there's one scene, I think it's in the trailer, there's one scene where a guy kind of teases him and kind of pushes him, and he's like, if you touch me again, you're not going to get that hand back. And then he touches him, and before he even can move his hand back to his body, he gets his arm cut off.
And then he's so cold.
And then everybody's freaking out, and Eli just takes 2 or 3 steps into the back, and he's
the shadow
closes over his face, and he's just in the bridge. And then the next scene is just an all-out chaotic brawl, shadow lit, dark figures just back and forth. You don't see any color. There's no blood. It's just you see him just battle. There's a guy with a chainsaw that's he's like battling this guy with a chainsaw. It is incredible. It's cool. Very, very, very.
And then he comes
cool.
back out, and the woman's still there, and he just stares her down into saying like, all right, here's our water. You can take it if you want. And I don't think he takes it, but it's just like, this dude is cold.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He is so laser focused.
He's not interested in anything besides protecting himself, protecting his cargo, and going west. That's it. Like,
that was a very cool thing too, and we'll kind of get more into it with the thematic thing. But like, he prioritizes the protection of the book so much. He gives up so many valuable things just to make sure that he is alive and that the book stays safe. Those two things take precedence over all the worldly comforts that he has, what little he has.
Yep. I almost debated the scene immediately preceding that was also in my consideration for top 3, but I nixed it. So
that's where he
encounters the biker gang, and he's on the top of the cliff, and that biker gang is kind of robbing those women.
Yeah, dude.
And he's like, it's not your place. It's not your fight.
Yeah.
Stay focused. It's not your place.
Yeah.
He has to convince himself from going to help this woman because he knows that he'll be in a position to get killed. Yeah. And
it does set up a cool character arc there.
It very much does. But that's my second favorite scene. Probably the most violent. Second.
No, there's another one.
There's another scene.
Actually, there's 2 more that are more violent than that scene.
Yeah, that's very true.
But my second favorite one is he goes to Gary Oldman's town, and Gary Oldman puts him up in a room.
Yep.
And Gary Oldman tries to convince Eli to stay in town.
Yeah.
He sends him a young woman,
prostitute.
Yeah, for exactly why you think he sends him a young woman. And it's Mila Kunis, and her name's Solara. And, of course, Eli, he's cold. He's also a stand-up dude. So he does not take the bait.
Yeah.
But instead, he's very hospitable to Solara, and he treats her very well. And as he sits down he invites her to eat with him. And as they sit down, he tells her, hey, close your eyes, bow your head, takes her hands, and he prays with her.
Oh,
this wonderful prayer of primarily thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all the simple, and she has no idea what he's doing.
She has no idea what's going on. She was born into a world where she can't read. She can't, she has no idea.
She's never heard of prayer. Yeah. And he says, thank you, Lord, for this meal, for company to share it with, for a roof over our heads. And it's just like such a thankful prayer, which really struck me. Mm-hmm. And he closed that out. And then later on, she goes and prays with her mom, who's kind of in the thrall of Gary Oldman. And her mom is blind, so she's just kind of his prisoner. And
that is a very cool scene.
It's so cool. And there's just more than just what it is. There's another reason why I love it so much. We'll talk about that when we get into the thematic things. But that's my second favorite.
Yep.
And your third favorite.
My third favorite.
We might get into spoiler territory here, folks.
Maybe,
so you're aware.
Maybe we will. My third favorite, Eli, later in the movie, is traveling with Solara at that point. They're traveling. They find a elderly couple who own a home. and they wander up to the front door, and a sign says no trespassing, and they ring the doorbell anyways for a variety of reasons.
And they get trapped.
And then they get trapped immediately in the old couple who the man is Dumbledore, which is hilarious. But the old couple comes out and says, who are you? And he's like, we're just traveling west. We're just trying to get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, the old couple very kindly brings them into the house.
Nah.
And the woman is trembling and shaking and bringing them tea and wants to bring them meat. And then they quickly realize that these people have killed...
It's human meat.
They've killed a lot of travelers, and they're eating a lot of human meat.
Because that's another cool detail. They don't over-explain it.
Yeah.
They constantly ask Eli, show us your hands.
They just say, are you one of them? And he's like, I'm not one of them. And he shows them his hands, and it's steady. There's no shaking.
Just so you're aware, if you plan on eating human meat anytime soon, too much of it causes your hands to tremble.
Yeah.
So that's what happens.
It is what happens.
Just so you're aware. But that's what they noticed, and that was like... It was cool. It was cool that kind of...
It's very gross, dude.
It's horrifying, but it's also like the timing of it is nice. We're like...
Yeah.
I think it's kind of put together for us at a very good timing where it's like, oh shoot, that is what's happening.
They show the plate of meat as the man is like carrying it. It's like...
And it's directly after they realize like that's what's happening, and so they realize they got to get out.
Yeah, they're like, okay, well, we are going to leave. And then as soon as they try and leave, the gang that is pursuing them... Gary Oldman and his gang, Carnegie, our antagonist, find them, and there is a absolute massive shootout.
Yeah.
That the camera work is so cool. I loved it. It's very cool. And some of the funniest parts of the movie are in that scene. There's a scene where they're kind of locked up, and they're like, what are we going to do? And the woman's like, well, I know what the hell I'm going to do.
And she freaking, she cocks a gun.
She cocks a gun like she's going to do anything. There's like 15 people outside. But it was very, very funny and very cool. And the action in that scene is incredible. Because the whole time, Eli is just stone cold. Like, he's not worried. He's not acting crazy. He's like, I know I'm going to be all right. I know we're going to get through this.
Yeah, it's
kind of plays into this thematic analysis.
Dude, I'm ready to get into it. But my third favorite is actually, I think, closely following that scene when the gang is returning from this assault because they've shot, like, Carnegie's like lieutenant shoots Eli, and they leave him for dead, and they take Solara. And I don't remember exactly why, but Solara causes a car accident, and the sword is on the dash of the car. Yeah. And this moment just like really struck me, where like they finally stop rolling, and Solara like dispatches with the rest of them.
She takes the seatbelt and wraps it around the neck of the
that's
driver.
right. Yeah. And then after they finish rolling, she realizes the lieutenant has ended up with this machete in his chest, and he pulls it out. And stumbles out of the car, gets down on his knees. He does a very like Rutger Hauer and Blade Runner kind of death, where he's just kneeling. Yeah. And he just kind of bows his head and dies that way.
And he's frozen, kneeling.
Yeah. There's something so striking about that scene.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably my third.
Pulling that blade out is brutal, dude. It's not a small knife. It's like a 3.5
It was a good effect. It looked great.
It is very cool.
And so those are my third favorite. Oh wait, we didn't. So, what was your big con? I need to, before we get into thematic analysis, I want to know what you're referring to.
The big con?
I think I know what it is, but go ahead with it.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
I might not.
The ending of this movie is
what?
Oh, the ending of this movie is one of the worst.
What?
The last? Oh yeah, dude. The last 5 minutes of this movie single-handedly took down a 1.5 stars.
Really?
Oh, the ending of this movie, I think, is so bad.
This is the first time I think we're going to disagree on this podcast.
Dude, specifically the last 60 seconds of this movie made me so mad.
Really?
I despise the ending of this movie.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to have to get to that soon, but I thought it was going to be the massive plot hole. Your comment was going to be the massive plot hole where obviously Eli's on a solo mission. Yeah. And so he tries leaving the town. He succeeds in leaving the town, but Solara wants to go with him. Yeah. And so he's like, nope, can't follow me. And she goes, wait, I'll show you where we get our water. And so she does. Yep. And it's an underground spring.
Locked in.
And he locks her in there. Yeah. And we're not shown anything of her. Like, we cut back to Eli's journey for a little bit, and then all of a sudden she's just out on the road again. And it's just like, it's never revisited. Eli never goes like, how'd you get out? He never turns to her and asks, and like for some reason it's like he's waiting up. Like it could be inferred that the thing that has put him on this quest has told him to wait up for her. But other than that, it's like, why did he wait around?
And how? And Yeah.
and what's going on there.
It is interesting. That was less of an issue for me than the ending of this movie.
That's really surprising to me. I loved the ending.
Oh, well, we could talk about it.
we sure can. But before we get to it, well, because I think it has a lot of bearing on the spiritual takeaways.
It does. It doesn't. It's not that much the ending. It's the fact that, and then we can spoil the ending of the movie. At the end of the movie, Eli dies.
Yeah.
And Mila Kunis's character, like, takes up the helm and puts the knife in her.
And she says she's going to return home and like free her mother. She's going
to return home and all this stuff. And I'm like, why in the world is
what?
Why? What? Does she even say that she's going to free up her mother? It seems like they're trying.
That's the implied quest.
Well, maybe.
What else would she be doing?
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. The whole point, and I know that there's a deleted scene where at the very end of the movie, Solara's mom is reading the Braille, because she's blind. She's reading the Braille Bible to Carnegie. If they would have made that the final scene of the movie, like Carnegie is dying, he's dead, he's of this old age, and the woman that he's been abusing.
Well, it's not just old age. He also gets shot in the leg and doesn't have proper medical care.
Yeah. That would have been more impactful than trying to set. It seemed like they were trying incredibly hard to set up like a sequel to the movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it wasn't really all that obvious to me. Maybe I missed something, that she was just on her way home to. Also, why in the world does she think that she would be able to wield this sword and these guns to kill a whole town full of people to save her mom?
Because she's learned to trust what guided Eli.
Oh, maybe, dude.
That's what I gathered.
There's no. Maybe it's just the blind trust and the provision of the thing that guided Eli, but also his whole purpose was protecting this book, and hers is not that. And she puts on all of this stuff and is like, "I'm gonna go be Eli," and I'm like, "What the heck is going on?"
Yeah, Mila Kunis is definitely a downgrade from Denzel.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
it just surprised me. I was like, "What?"
And honestly, like whatever about the actual content of the ending. There's like a prayer that he says over the ending that is more important. That's more what impacts me about the ending.
First Timothy,
that's more what really.
I agree.
I wish it would have.
I wish it would have stopped there. If it would have stopped there before she puts on the helm, that's the biggest thing. Is whenever she kind of takes on this, like, I'm the new Eli. I'm gonna go do all this stuff. But also, she doesn't even have the main attributes of Eli that made all of the things that he does so amazing. So I don't.
That's fair.
Sorry, that's me. That's my main negative.
Hey, you know what? That's why we're here. We're trying to talk about this stuff and be real about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say this is a perfect movie at all. So
No.
I'm perfectly willing to concede some gripes here and there because like I said, like I just kept waiting for like Jeremy Shaddix to show up and just start singing about his last resort.
Yeah.
So.
A little bit of Wes Borland in there.
Oh, that'd be crazy. He would fit right in.
Fred Durst, he would. Yeah,
he would fit right in. But
creepy apocalyptic guy.
That would be freaking. Corey Taylor shows up. It's like, oh shoot, there he is.
That's the guy from Slipknot.
That's the guy from Slipknot.
No, I'm not. I'm a biker.
Sean Crahan just beating away at a trash can with a baseball bat. It's. Anyway, so
yeah.
Let's jump into enough about
Yeah.
our extensive knowledge of new metal bands. Let's jump into thematic analysis. So I mean, obvious, like the big theme here is that he is like faithfulness to a mission is a big theme in this one because he is just like he is relentless in his pursuit of this mission. Like I said, he sacrifices clothes and the wipes, the scarce wipes that he uses to clean himself.
The things that are most valuable in that world.
Yeah, in order to protect this book.
And people are surprised by the things that he's willing to give up.
Yep.
Gloves,
yeah. They kind of like stop and look at him because
they're like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah, because he's all about him surviving and this book being protected, and that faithfulness to his mission is a big theme of just like this is an uncommonly dedicated character to his mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. And I wish, because it's assumed. I watched the first time. Well, I should say the first time when the movie immediately ended. I was like, I wonder if this was my immediate reaction. I wonder if Eli is actually a believer, a follower of Jesus, or if he is just kind of assuming the positive attributes of God. But the more the movie goes on, the more I thought back about the things. I was like, oh no, this guy believes what he's saying. He's praying.
Yeah, for sure.
He's teaching people to pray. He is the most prolific memorization expert of Scripture in the history of the world.
Yeah. And we'll get to that.
We'll get into that for certain. But he believes what he's doing. He's not just like a what do they call him, a cultural Christian. He knows the impact of the thing that he's doing. And he holds it with the most high regard you could. I mean, ultimately, it costs him his life.
Yeah.
In the end.
Yeah.
Slowly, he's able and willing to give up more and more of himself to go along with this mission. And he even talks at the very end, that prayer that he gives is, I've fought the good fight. I've kept the faith.
I finished the race.
Yep. It's exactly what I think Paul was intending.
And actually, wait, before we get too deep into this.
Yep. Sorry.
One other really cool thing, Atticus Ross does the music for this movie, and it kicks really hard.
It's super good.
Atticus Ross is one half of Nine Inch Nails since 2016. He did the music for this movie. It's so good.
It's really, really good.
It's really good. Anyway.
The music is incredible. The sound engineering in the whole movie is also absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
I love the use of sound in this movie. That's probably one of my favorite things in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Especially watching it the second time.
Yeah, so... And actually, I feel like, we said we'd get into the thematic analysis and then, spiritual takeaways, but they're so wrapped up together in this movie. I feel like we could just jump in.
Yeah. 100%.
So, spoiler territory, the book, we kind of talked about it, but the book he's carrying is the Bible.
The Bible.
And it's
the last Bible in existence.
It's a KJV.
Yep.
And what a moment when you find out it's Braille.
It's
and this
Braille
whole time...
Yeah.
Eli has been blind.
He's blind.
Eli is blind this whole time, and he is so relentless. One of the coolest moments is when he's walking away from all of Carnegie's henchmen.
Yeah.
And they shoot at him, and like one shot misses. He stops for a second, keeps walking. Another shot goes and catches his hood on his jacket and kind of like through it,
you
and
can barely see it.
And he stops again. He hasn't been hurt. He stops again, and he just keeps walking.
Yep.
And the guy, at that point, just lowers his gun. He's like, what can I do?
It's like he's being protected.
He is being protected. So,
yeah. And they even say that. They're like, this guy's got, he's just something's protecting him from all this stuff.
Yeah, it's so cool. So it turns out that, basically, it's very heavily implied that, as a matter of fact, God himself has vocally commanded Eli to carry out this mission and has promised him that nothing will stop him on this mission.
Yeah.
And... the way that, that his faith in God, the prayers that he offers, the reverence he has for the scriptures, it's also sincere.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing I really wanted to talk about, is that it's so sincere.
Oh, yeah.
And that was so refreshing to me.
I agree.
Just
Yeah, definitely. It's very sincere. And even in those moments, in my favorite scene, whenever the way I understand it is the scene that I shared where he comes across that woman on the side of the road who's begging, who needs help. He knows that woman is being used as a tool to manipulate him, to get him to, and he still stops and helps her. And then the same thing is the immediate next scene. He's hiding on the top of the hill and he's like, I can't get involved in this. I can't get involved in this.
Yeah.
And then eventually he gets himself involved in much more and wants to provide and wants to save and wants to... It's the things that he does on top of his main mission that show his humanity, that show his willingness to help those that are the lowest of the low.
Yeah,
that is really cool. It kind of fits into the theme of Harakiri a little bit in that sense that we talked about last week, where it's Carnegie's pursuit of this book is not good. It's literally he explicitly wants to use it. He says to his people, it's the most powerful book in the world. Yeah. And if we have it, we can make people do whatever we want. Yeah. We can just convince them to do whatever we want. There's no way that people would argue. It has hope. It has all of this stuff within it that we could use to get everything out of people. And it's very wrong. It's very wrong-minded.
And Eli's like, no, I'm not giving it to you.
No, I'm not giving this to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love, that's another thing too that's really cool, is the idea that the Bible is essential for society to exist,
necessary.
for things to be, if something were to go wrong, for things to be rebuilt. I think that's a true thing, and it's, there's that book by Tom Holland, Dominion, that basically says like, hey, all the things you believe about human rights and slavery being wrong and things like that, that's because of Jesus and his followers, and like, I just think that theme is so true, and again, just the sincerity of it really struck me because, like, who would come out and say that? They're like, hey, the Bible is like really important and we should preserve it, and like. And because, I mean, it reminded me of like Fahrenheit 451, where at the end of the book, the main character, because they burn all the books in this dystopian future, and he finds this group of old dudes who just spend all their time, they have all these books memorized, and the guy talking to him is like, that guy over there has the Bible, and like it's like it's necessary to have this, and that's, of course, that's what Eli's been doing. He reads it. Dude, you tell me about it. What does Eli do with the Bible?
He reads the Bible incessantly every single day. Yep. Like, that's what I was saying. He's the most prolific scripture memorization champion of all time. I should also note at this point that I was the 5-time elementary school Bible verse memorization champion of Capital City Christian Church. So I know a thing or two about VBS Bible verse memorization. But
do you remember what the prizes were? Did you get prizes?
I got a Bible, dude.
Oh, you got Bibles for it?
I got a kid's Bible. I still have it somewhere.
All 5 times you got separate Bibles?
Different Bibles, yeah.
You got to upgrade this kid to like a...
Hey, kid, you got this whole thing memorized anyway, so here you go. Here's another one with colors on it.
Yeah, this time we got you a study Bible.
Yeah, but no, I mean, he effectively memorizes the whole Bible. There's a beautiful scene where he gets shot. He sacrifices himself for the mission. He obviously trusts that he will be able to accomplish the mission, but he needs to, at that point, get to the West before he dies, because you find out he has the whole freaking thing memorized.
Yeah.
The whole Bible.
I love that. That's another one that's up there as my favorites, where
he's like, get a lot of paper. A lot of paper.
Yeah, they go to Alcatraz at the end, because it turns out that's the holdout. It's where a lot of people are trying to rebuild society, and Malcolm McDowell is there he's freaking there for some reason. They managed to get him for a day or two.
He looks like Albert Einstein.
Yeah, and he says like, do you have a Bible? And he says, yes, I do. And this is as you're finding out that it's Braille, because Carnegie has the book and doesn't realize it's Braille yet.
The reveals are simultaneously.
Yeah, and he says it's a little beat up, but it'll do the job.
Oh, it's so good.
And I thought that was so cool. Like, just like, imagine what you have to do in your day is mostly walking, and then in the evenings when you rest, you read the Bible for 30 years.
Yep.
Every day. Like, you would have the whole thing memorized.
There's some really cool scenes before you realize that he's blind. He's like, the scene when he walks into the downtown area whenever Carnegie sends the woman to try and seduce him. What he's doing is reading the Bible. He's huddled in the corner next to the door, which I'm trying to understand exactly what the purpose of him.
That's probably just so he can hear if somebody's coming up behind him.
But he's just kind of crouched over and he's just reading it with his fingers. And then there's another scene where they're in like this nuclear cooler reactor.
Yeah, just a shell of it. Yeah.
And he's doing the same thing. He's just reading it. Just at the end of the evening, he's just reading his Bible.
And the first time you see him do that, he's like moving his lips.
Yeah,
and
he's kind of speaking it, which is a cool.
And Mila Kunis has to like hear from it, and he like recites part of Psalm 23, and it's so beautiful.
Oh, dude, it's beautiful. It's incredible. Like, I mean, his commitment.
Yeah, just the idea of like I think this is cool. Yeah, because Carnegie wants the book for nefarious reasons. Eli has this this death grip on it. He wants to protect it at all costs. He doesn't even let Mila Kunis look at it.
Yeah.
And eventually, he gives up the book. He lets Carnegie have it. And he has this really cool line where he says, like, I was so concerned about keeping that book safe that I forgot to actually learn what it says.
The purpose of it, yeah.
And she's like, what's that? And he says, do more for others than you do for yourself.
Yeah.
And that was just like,
it's beautiful.
It's so cool. And it's such a great character arc from him. He starts going like, it's not my fight. It's not my, when these women are getting assaulted, and he's like, it's not my problem. I have this mission. And then he's like, no, this is, this is what the scriptures would have me do.
Yeah.
And just like, more important than holding on to objects of your religious significance more than, I mean, obviously over using it to manipulate people, like hiding the word in your heart.
Yeah.
There's a reason, that's, talk about in the Psalms a lot, like meditating on the Lord's word a day and night. And that's what Eli does. And that's what enables his faith. That's what helps keep him going. And it's what turns him into a hero at the end of the day, is that he
doesn't, what turns him into a hero isn't the fact that he kills everybody that's trying to keep him from doing this. It's the fact that he willingly gives up his life for this goal, for this mission, for this much greater purpose. He sacrifices himself to save Mila Kunis in the situation, because they were both going to be killed if he didn't give up the Bible. So he gives them the Bible. They still shoot him, and then from that point on, he still finds his way out west.
Well, yeah, he gets up and just starts walking away, because she goes back to the scene of the crime. She's like, "What happened? Where is he?" And then he's walking down the road.
Yeah, he's like, "I just got to get there.
I got to get there." And it's really cool.
It is cool.
I also thought one thing I kind of wanted to bring up and just kind of toss around with you a little bit, because you and I both have kind of been considering this a lot.
Yeah.
The idea of nonviolence and pacifism. You and I both, I think I would definitely at this point err on the side of nonviolence and pacifism.
Yeah.
And that's been that
was my...
Yeah, you share a little bit about, you have a more, I think, a deeper journey with that than I have. So you go ahead and share about that a little bit.
Well, the first time I watched this movie, I hadn't thought even a second about pacifism. I was like, yeah, this is what I would have done too if somebody were trying to do this to me or whatever.
Somebody touches my Bible, they're losing a hand.
I would have cut their arm off or whatever it may be. But I wrote a note. I was like, his faith is commendable, and his perseverance is the word that kept coming to mind. Like, no matter what he faces, he continues to persevere. His trust that God will provide for him. And there are some really cool thematic things, some really cool kind of detail things that happen in the midst of that kind of show his trust. But very obviously, he doesn't believe that Jesus calls his followers to be nonviolent.
Or at least, well, it's interesting because, one, this is an exceptional situation.
It is, yeah. He's the last person on earth, which is another kind of negative thing in my mind, is like, how in 30 years has the most prevalent religion in the history of humanity
has it been wiped out?
Just been completely wiped from existence.
That's a fair point.
There's not enough kind of leading up to that point to understand where I was trying to wrestle with this and think, like, if this situation were to come into play where you are the last Christian in the world, and you are in possession of the last word of God in the world, would that justify violence? I don't, and that's where I'm just trying to think, like, it's such an otherworldly example that I can't allow it to affect the my negative review of the movie. But it definitely challenged me to think that, like, Jesus promises that he's overcome the world.
Yeah.
And why would we believe that even if Eli were to die as the last blind person, which, I mean, like, other people maybe presumably can even read Braille. So what's to say that even if he were to die,
like if Solara's mom couldn't have done something with it.
Solara's mom could have translated the Bible, and it could have existed. So it's hard for me to justify that. But it is definitely a journey that I've been on over the past few years, just trying to understand. Like, I just believed for the longest time that to be nonviolent meant to be weak, and if you weren't able to provide safety for your family and for yourself, then that was just as bad as somebody who was going to kill somebody. If I were to just let somebody kill me, it's just as bad as if I were killing somebody else, because I'm not able to save anything. I'm not able to provide anything. I'm just kind of a nothingness, a nothing burger in that case. But the more I've studied, and the more I've prayed, and the more I've had conversations, and the more I've tried to open myself to the possibility of a nonviolent way of life, the more I've understood that I can't fathom another alternative to what Jesus commands of his followers. I just can't. I can't understand another way to interpret the things that he says to Peter when he tries to cut that guard's head off, and he says, "This is not what we do. Stop. Put your sword away. And if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword."
Yeah.
And there's a variety of other scripture references, and I would love to talk to other people about this too, because I mean, I hold it with an open hand, but I'm pretty strongly convinced that this is the life that Jesus expects of those that follow him. So I was trying to think about that in the movie, and I was like, I'm not going to let this ruin the movie.
It's definitely, because again, it is an exceptional situation, and I think very much in some exceptional situations, like God commands the Israelites to kill, and it's just like, well, God has the authority to do that, and that was in the name of preserving the nation. This was in the name of preserving the scriptures.
So could this be looked at as though, Eli has taken on the Old Testament kind of nation of God, ordained by God kind of way of it? I don't know.
Yeah, that might be a little too deep, but I do think it's. I mean, he does acknowledge at the end. He says in his prayer over the last part of the movie, he says, I hope I've done a little bit of good, alongside all the bad. So I think he recognizes that, like, this is not the ideal. This is not how.
Definitely,
in most cases, the word should be preserved. But
and that's God's approach throughout all of the Old Testament. When all of these
he works with what he's got.
Yeah, he's like, I would rather you not have a king and submit to me and trust me. And there are multiple examples of God commanding the Israelites to go out to do battle, and then saying, hey, before you go out and try and slaughter all these people, just have like a worship night. Just pray, just sing some songs, and then you can go to battle. And then when the Israelites show up, everybody's dead already. God
or they
did
just
all the
leave.
work. Or they just leave, or all of the work has been accomplished.
That's true, yeah.
And then every single time the Israelites get kind of prideful, and then they go and do it themselves, and then something goes awry, and God either removes himself from the situation and all of them die, or it's like the slaughter is on either way, but it's not. Right. It's not by the It's
I don't see that would be God's ideal, but
no, definitely.
Yeah, so
I get on a tangent there. Sorry.
No, I think it's good. I think sometimes, like, I do think that we are that. I don't want this to be a political podcast, but I do think
it's good. It made me think.
I do think we're overly militant in America as Christians. We're way too quick to kind of talk about defending our turf and things like that, and doing it with lethal force. And I think it's good to when. I mean, the fact is, you and I both really like really violent movies. So it's like when we encounter that in art, like, how do we process through it? How do we? And that could be a whole episode on itself. Like, how do we, as people who at least are very attracted to the idea of pacifism, seem to, like, the words of Jesus seem to say that to us. Like, how do we interact with violence? And that could be a whole thing by itself. But I think it's important to wrestle with those things, because that's part of what we're trying to do here. And if it bumps up against your convictions, what do you do with that?
Yeah, you definitely don't brush it off and make fun of whatever alternate perspective might come up against yours, I think, which is what I did for a long time. I was like, oh my gosh, these sissy pacifists, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You're just going to let yourself get killed or whatever it may be? I'm like, it was a crazy perspective to have. I shouldn't say crazy, because I know a lot of people still have kind of a bent in that direction, and it's understandable. It really is, and that's coming from somebody who used to believe that. But I mean, it is interesting. I think Jesus very clearly didn't shy away from violence. I mean, he was murdered on a cross.
Yeah,
and he told his disciples multiple times that would happen, and he wasn't the one committing the violent act, but he
was always receiving it.
He was always receiving it.
In itself is also challenging.
It is. He also didn't shy away from grotesque imagery. I mean, he commanded his disciples to eat his flesh and drink his blood, and unless they did that, they were no part of him. Yeah. There's no other way to kind of soften that blow. That's why we eat and drink it every single week at our church, is because we want to remember that. But we kind of shy away from maybe some of the more deeply impactful and meaningful parts of what that means to literally eat the flesh of Christ and to drink his blood. I mean, it's
and that's part of it too. I think violence in media is a way to explore the cosmic concepts of good and evil and how they interact. And, like, when a character kills an evil person, for me, that's more just like, that's a way for us to be satisfied in our longing for justice in a way that doesn't actually require blood to be shed. And so in the case of the Book of Eli, that's kind of, that's sort of where I land. You know, you can still kind of talk about like, well, has this really happened? Where could, but it's really cool. And I think like at the end of the day, like, again, it's about faithfulness. Like, could you, I mean, in your Christian walk, in my Christian walk, do I hide the word of God in my heart? Do I, you know, again, we're both ministers. So it's like, we got a mission.
Yeah.
We gotta, and sometimes it might seem as nonsensical to people as just repeatedly saying, well, I gotta go west. You know?
I don't even have to go all the way west. I have to walk across my lawn to talk to my neighbor. Like, that's all I have to do. And I'm not even willing to do that half the time. You know, like, I have all these other things in my life that I allow to distract me and keep me from accomplishing that. Meanwhile, this man traveled across the entire country for 30 years on the same mission.
Faith. On faith, on pure faith.
And he accomplished it.
Yeah.
You know, and he believed that God would provide for him, or at least that's the assumption.
Yeah.
As he's acting in the rest of the whole movie. But
how faithful are we? How much do we trust God that he will...
Do we allow perseverance to produce steadfastness within us?
Because even like, you know, perseverance produce steadfastness. That's good. Like the word, the book that Eli is carrying, we have that book. Yeah. It's the word of God. We don't need an audible voice because he's telling us already, you got a mission.
Yeah.
And you got something that looks kind of crazy to the world to get going and do. And how much do we trust that he actually means it when he says, I'll be with you till the end of the age. I'll be with you till this thing is finished.
Yeah.
Keep her going. Like I said, again, I keep coming back to it because it really was striking to me. A mainstream blockbuster movie from 2010 just had this sincere depiction of Christian faithfulness.
Yeah.
Of just like,
I mean, it's explicit. I mean, there's no way around that.
There's no way around that. Yeah. Like, this guy believes in the scriptures, believes that the Christian God spoke to him and gave him a mission, and he followed it to the very end. You know, if this movie were made by different filmmakers,
I just had the same thought.
In this year, there would be at least like a scene or two of him being like, oh, you know, sometimes I don't know about this mission. Sometimes I lay awake at night and I think, like, did I really hear that voice? I don't think there's a single moment like that.
No,
where
he doesn't question it at any point. No.
And that's refreshing.
It is refreshing.
that you know, in the Bible, purity is defined as, I mean, my understanding is that it's single-mindedness. And he's just got this pure vision of what his mission is. And he goes after it. Yeah, and there's none of that discouragement, not once, as far as I can recall. Even when he gets freaking shot.
Yeah.
And it's like, even the audience is like, oh, is this it?
Gone.
Like,
he's done.
He's still just like, you know, apparently, you know, off screen, he's like, well, that's a little bump in the road. Got to get up and keep
walk to San Francisco.
Got to keep walking with a bullet in my gut, you know. This was a really cool movie. I would recommend it to.
I would recommend it.
It's super accessible. I think it's kind of a blockbuster. It's got fun action. It's more modern, so it's not. You know, it's not surrealist and crazy like the first movie we reviewed. It's not old and Japanese like the second one. This one is very, like, should be pretty accessible to most people.
Very consumable. Yeah. It's a cool, you could watch this with your wife for a movie night and it's not going to, I mean, the violence is a little over the top at some points.
Yeah, but if she's cool. She'll be cool with it.
Yeah, if she's cool, she'll understand.
If she's cool. That's such a funny idea. Like, you know, like your wife might be uncool and like think that on-screen decapitations are like not cool, but if she's cool, she'll get it.
There's a lot of really cool things though about this movie. I would highly recommend. If you're at this point of the movie, you'll probably, obviously we've spoiled it at this point, so don't spoil it for your loved one. But if you're listening to this the second time through, hopefully maybe some things have been opened to your eyes just a little bit. I want to mention one thing that my brother Keenan pointed out to me as well.
Oh, cool.
That I thought was incredible. So the whole time watching this movie the first time, didn't realize he was blind. The second time, I'm listening to it a little bit differently and I'm watching a little bit differently. The hyper extension of the audio to like really pinpoint the main things that are happening in certain scenes are really cool, especially in a decent surround sound. It's like, oh, it's very obvious he's using his sense of hearing to judge.
Little random sounds just kind of pop out at different times.
And then also the coolest scene in the whole movie, in my opinion, which didn't hit my top 3 because it's just, I don't know, I like the other ones more, but it is very cool, is the shootout in that street whenever he's firing at all these people. He never, and which this is also another point that I want to mention about the nonviolence, and if there is a justification for violence in any manner, he's never the one that.
He's not the instigator.
He's not the instigator in any situation. He's always acting in defense, and he almost every single time gives multiple opportunities for them to not come at him.
Yeah.
The guy, the first time before he cuts his hand off, said, if you touch me again.
Yeah. He tells him.
I
forgot about.
You're not ever going to get that hand back.
Okay, this is just random, but when he grabs one of the bikers who assaulted these women early in the movie, and he just slams his head against the bar, and he says you're gonna have to give an account of what you've done. Yeah. You know that, right? That's oh my gosh, this guy just invoked the judgment of God on this guy. That's crazy. It's so crazy. Cool. It was cool.
But that scene in the street, he never fires first, and he waits for people to fire at him in order to identify where they're at in the street, and then shoot them back. Dude, it's so cool watching the second time through. Watch every single shot. He waits for them to shoot at him, and then he fires back immediately and hits them every single time. Dead eye, right on. It's very cool.
It's a cool movie.
When did you realize he was blind?
Oh, well, I got to be honest with you. I knew going in the big twist. I don't think it lessened his impact. There's a really cool, when he starts reciting the Bible and the movie is revealed that he's blind, it zooms in on his eyes and it's very cool.
Yeah,
but you can kind of see little moments where he's blind.
There's a scene he walks into
early
a room
on and he bumps into a table.
Yeah.
And it's so cool.
It's very good.
It's so fun, and like I said, it's accessible. It would be really cool if you're somebody who's got a teenage son, or if you got a cool wife. Mom, I'm back, Mom. Watch the Book of Eli, Mom. But and I think it's worth your time. I think it will bless you.
I agree.
Just for it's really cool because there are Christian movies out there.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't very many good. I'll be real with you.
Yeah.
There's not very many good ones.
I agree.
There's one in particular that I do want to talk with you about on this show.
Yeah.
But that is really, really good. We'll talk,
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but we'll have to save that for a special episode.
I'll probably cry that episode.
Yeah, well, I think that might be our 1 year if we make it that far, which I think we can.
We'll make it that far for certain.
And that'll be our 1 year is that movie.
Oh.
And we will cry that episode. You guys get to guess what that is.
It's incredible.
But this is just one of those things where it didn't feel just loaded up with cheese. It didn't feel like there wasn't a kid standing up saying God isn't dead actually.
Text all your friends, God's not dead, or you're gonna die.
You're gonna get hit by a car and go to hell.
If you don't text everybody God's not dead, then God is dead. What did you just say? What did you just say, Kevin Sorbo?
Kevin, you're gonna be just like Kevin Sorbo, flattened out on the highway and on the way to hell. So no, that's not what this movie is.
No,
and so if you're somebody who's very averse to Christian movies, and we've made it sound like a very pure flicks movie, it's certainly not a pure flicks movie.
Certainly not an explicitly Christian movie, aside from.
Well, I don't know if I would say it's not.
It's pretty explicitly Christian. I mean, there's a scene at the end of the movie where they're putting the Bible on the shelf and they're zooming in as next to the Quran, next to the Book of Mormon. It's
but it's the biggest one.
But it's the Bible.
It's the Bible.
It's the Bible.
It's the one they've needed. So
it'll be interesting. I should note before we wrap things up, they are in production of a television series. Did you know that?
No.
Starring John Boyega.
What?
Yeah, he signed the contract to do that. It's
gonna be like a prequel.
I think it is a prequel.
Who's making it? Who's the showrunners?
The same writer.
Gary Whitta.
Yep, he is writing.
Is he a believer?
I don't know. I didn't do the research.
I feel like you got to be a Christian to write something like that.
I agree. It'll be interesting to see, like we've kind of said, how that sets up, because you find out before all this happened, he worked at a Kmart. So I wonder how they're going to start this.
It's just a workplace comedy with like Eli at Kmart.
Just a bomb goes off. He goes blind and then immediately becomes a Christian.
Yeah, that's funny. Like he didn't even. I don't think he talks about like whether he grew up with it. It's just he got this mission after he became blind. But that'd be funny if it was just like this crazy moment where he's just
bomb
like,
is crazy.
I haven't really
probably pray. Right?
Yeah, I'm hearing a voice. This is wild. That.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, if it ever gets made, half the time these shows that get signed they die before they reach the end. But
that's true.
John Boyega, that's a big time actor.
Yeah, he's no small potatoes.
Yeah.
What they're doing anything these days, aren't they?
They are, man.
That's the wildest property. I guess it's probably because Gary was just like, I want to explore this character more.
This movie made like over $100 million. It made a lot of money.
Well, I mean, the star power attached to it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's true. At that time, Mila Kunis was nobody, though.
Yeah. Okay.
So, well, she wasn't nobody.
Well, I guess we'll be waiting with, not bated breath, but we'll be waiting to see about that TV show.
Maybe next year at this time, we'll be reviewing the first season of the Books of Eli.
Only if it's good, Zane. Don't make me do it if it's bad. Don't make me do it, please.
So far, all the movies that we've been doing are good. We enjoy
pretty
them
good.
On the positive end. Maybe one of these days we'll go watch a movie that we don't like and we'll talk about it.
That would be
I anticipate
an interesting episode.
I anticipate there will be an episode in the future where we'll definitely kind of have some more negative than positive things to say. Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah. But in the meantime, this was a really great time, Zane.
Yeah,
and I
agree.
enjoyed it.
It's a good time for certain.
And hey, like we said before, may you have people around you to enjoy art with, to appreciate art with. May the Spirit of God speak through that art to you. May you learn more about God the Father, God the Son, and experience His love through that art. May you just have joyous conversation. And I just pray that this show and the movies that we recommend, the movies that you or any kind of art form that you consume with your friends would lead you deeper into a knowledge of who God is. Yeah,
give this a listen. Pray through it. At the end, surround yourself with people that are going to edify you and encourage you on your journey with Christ. And we pray that this, like Tucker said, like that this podcast would be something that kind of moves you along in that journey, just a small step of it on your drive to work, as you're working, when you're doing the dishes with your family, whatever it may be. Just that's our goal and our desire. So watch this movie. Let us know what your thoughts are. Shoot us an email at tsdoaa2025@gmail.com. Write us a review. Again, check out the Letterboxd accounts for Tucker and I. Check out the link tree for our Instagram and everything else there.
And recommend us something to watch.
Yes, please. Or
listen to or whatever.
We've done pretty much 2 of our 3 episodes so far have been recommendations. So,
yeah. So I'm excited. And then the next one's going to be a recommendation as well. Exactly. So looking forward to the next episode. We'll have that out as soon as humanly possible. So, all right. Appreciate you guys. Hey, thank you, Zane. Thank you guys for listening. Yes, thank you.